There are so many people in my life that I'm so grateful for, and what better time than Thanksgiving to create a card just for them. In this lesson, we're going to create this card, and we're going to be doing all kinds of fun stuff from die cutting interesting materials to painting to assembling and even stitching on our card. This is a lot of fun to make, and I'm excited to show you how. So first of all, I have this Tim Holtz textile surface, and this is just like a fabric, and it's adhesive backed as well. So this is a lot of fun for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's already got the adhesive, which makes it super easy. But number two, because that adhesive is strengthening and stiffening everything here, makes really great die cutting material. So I'm going to take my Tattered Leaves dies, and I'm just going to set this over the top. It's the perfect width. You don't have to cut it or anything. I'm going to put it here in my Sizzix Big Shot and just roll it on through. And what we've got are our leaves all ready to go. Now, because of the material, because it is a very strong material, what you might find is you might have a couple of spots that want to be sticky. What I like to do is just kind of give it a wiggle before I go and try to recut it or even get the scissors out. I give it a wiggle first, and if there are a few really strong threads, the shape is all cut out. You're just going to need to release them, so to speak. So once you have got these out, what you're going to want to do is have some fun coloring them. These can take some really great mediums. I'm going to start with some of this Prima acrylic paint. I'm going to start with the orange one here. And this beautiful paint has kind of a metallic finish to it as well, which makes it extra fun to play with. And I am just going to brush it on. That material is going to really soak up the paint. And you can work with one color, or if you prefer, if you want to, you can get out another color. So like I can get out this beautiful bronzy color here. And I'm going to dip into the lid since I have a little bit of orange paint on here. I want to make sure not to cross-contaminate. And you can come back in and do all of it or do parts of it. You can layer on paint. If you wanted to use ink, you could use ink as well and just place it onto the leaves. In fact, we can pull out another leaf here to work with. To do the ink, I'm just going to apply it directly, just really rub it on there. If you have spray stains, lots and lots of mediums will work onto this material. It's so much fun. And you could add water onto here. You could put glossy accents over if you wanted it to be shiny. If you want to add a little bit of that metallic bronzy color, we can dab a little paint on here to go with the distress ink. Lots and lots of fun options. And because we're making all of this fun, funky mess here with just the leaves, you don't have to worry about making a mess on your card. You also don't have to worry about having a messy looking card because all of the mess is contained right here on our leaves. So once we've got all of our leaves set, we're going to want to clear everything off so that we don't mess up our finished card, of course. And now we're going to take some dye ink. I have Lawn Fawn Carrot dye ink here, and I've got a Hero Art Sentiment, So Very Thankful for You, one of my favorite stamps. I'm just going to ink it up, and I'm stamping on, it is about 1 1/4 inch high cardstock here. Just stamping it in the center and I have plenty of excess because we're going to place it onto our card. For the card, I'm working with some vellum and some cardstock. I'm working on a card that folded is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 because I figure I probably will end up mailing this card. And what I am going to do is I'm going to take a look where I have everything and where I would like everything. And I'm going to take note of where I want my sentiment strip to be. And the reason I'm going to really take note of that is because I'm going to want to put a little bit of adhesive I can put on underneath the flowers without it showing. This way I don't have to pull out a special adhesive. But then I'm also going to take a look at where on this card my sentiment is going to go and make sure your card is facing the proper way, because then I can just run some adhesive down, and I can even run some up since I know there are some embellishments there to really strengthen the vellum so it's really stuck on there and not going to go anywhere on us. Then just place it down. And also go ahead, don't put a lot of adhesive, but add a little bit of adhesive and place the sentiment strip. Now that our card is not assembled yet, but we've got the good base here. You'll notice everything's, the edges are kind of flicking up and it's not quite right. That's okay. We're going to stitch everything down into place. But first, we're going to put our leaves that we made, and you can use 2 or 3 leaves. Any more than that, these are bigger leaves, so any more than that's really going to be a little too much. If there's any parts that you want to trim off, you can. Now, because I used paint and all of those mediums on my leaves, I have 2 options. They will stay as they are with the paper backing, or I can peel it off and expose the adhesive. It really doesn't matter because it really does stick pretty well. So we could just put adhesive onto here. Just base it based off of how your card is going to look and what will work well for you. I'm going to actually do one of each because it does keep a curl better if you leave that paper on. Just put a little adhesive on there. And for this one, I'm just going to do 2 leaves. I'm going to add a few more embellishments. Now, if underneath here the stem is poking out, just trim it off, not a problem. And it's also okay if it goes over the edge a little bit. You'll just need to use a little bigger envelope. At this time, I'm ready to trim off the excess here from my sentiment strip. And I'm ready to pull out my embellishments and really decorate this. So for my embellishments, I have here the Autumn Afternoon Kit. And what I am going to work with, I love this trim with all the little brown leaves. It's perfect for this. I am going to set it on here, but I am not really going to worry about adhering it yet because I am going to use my stitching to adhere it. So I am just going to trim it off where I think I want it for now. And I can use just a little dot of glossy accents at the ends to make sure it stays put. You don't need very much at all. Like I said before, the stitching is really going to be what keeps that pinned into place. So a little bit at each end will do. The other thing that's really going to help keep that trim in place is that we're going to add in some embellishments. So I'm going to add in a button, a metal charm, just a couple little things that I think will look nice with this card. And you can really play around with all of the buttons and things. Sometimes it's just fun to just go through here and check them all out. But commit to a button. Don't spend all your time just looking at them. Commit to a button and a few things. I'm going to put a few little drops of glossy accents here. And I'm going to put my bigger button first, and then my charm. And once I have these 2 down, I will put a few little droplets of glossy accents to create little spots. I'm going to put a couple up here as well. Create a couple little spots for things like sequins or pearls or other little embellishments that I have here that I think would work really nicely. I don't think I can use a few little beads. I don't think for this particular one I'm going to, though. I feel like I want a few bigger items for what I'm working on, but you never know. As the process goes along and as you add little things to your embellishment clusters, you may find, that you are looking at something and go, there's a little spot here that's a little awkward or that I wish was a little different. And if that happens and you need just a little something to fill, that's when you pull out those little seed beads. They're great last minute additions, or, something's just not quite the way you want it type additions. Now, we are almost done with this card. All that's left now is the stitching. And the stitching is a lot easier than you might think because you could use a machine if you happen to have that. I am going to be using this We Are Memory Keepers tool and mat, foam mat, to stitch everything down nicely. But before I get to the stitching, I need to know where to run my embroidery threads. So I'm taking my Tim Holtz ruler. This is one of my all-time favorite tools. And I'm just lining it up. Because of all of the grid marks on this tool, it's so easy to know where you want to work. So I'm just going to line up. It doesn't really matter, but I'll line up one of the inch marks at one side and then decide at what point do I want to put my holes. I'm going to do, let's see, we're going to do, we'll start with 1/2 inch. I can always work smaller. I can always add additional. But I like to add, if I'm not quite sure if I want to be, say, 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch, I find it's much easier to add fewer and then go back in and add as needed. So I put my holes on one side just like so, and then I'm going to repeat the process. And this time what I'm going to want to do, what I like to do is I will put in one of the holes, I'll put the tool in there, and then I will line it up with the last hole. So I actually can feel it in there. And this is important because then that way I know where my starting point is. I'm also lining up so that I can see that everything is running straight, although it might not be straight on the mat. The ruler and the paper is straight, and that's really what matters here. And then I can go from here and make sure, let's see, do I want it there? Actually, you know, and if it happens where, such as this one, I decide, you know what, I would like it to go a little bit higher, or maybe I don't actually have it in the correct spot, I'll be able to tell because you're going to be able to see how far up. That's the great thing about a clear ruler. And then you're going to go along and punch the holes once again. And just repeat on all the sides. Now when we get to this side, what I'm going to want to do is I'm actually going to place this underneath because it can't quite go all the way through. We're going to cheat a little bit, so to speak, by doing this side in pieces. Now you can go over the top if we wanted to, or what I'm going to do is just go run it all the way underneath and pop back up here on this end. What I'm going to do, because I want to make sure that I really get it just so and that I have it exactly how I want it, I'm going to save that very last corner until I've actually done the stitching. That way I can know that everything's going to line up as I would like it to. Here I have some orange embroidery thread and I've got it all set with my needle. I'm just going to have to pick maybe the hardest part here. We're going to have to pick a starting point. So I usually like to start at one corner and you're just going to run this back and forth through your project. This can be a really good thing to do, say, in front of the TV, if you have a couple of them to do. And because we did all of that prep work with the ruler, all I have to do is go back and forth through that hole. And it's all lined up, so I don't have to worry, will it be straight? Will I get it right? It is all set up for us, nice and easy. Now that I have worked my way around 3/4 of the card, and you can see how the back side mirrors the front, I can take a really good look here at this edge and see how many spots I have space for. And the other thing that I'm able to see is that my thread is on the back side, so I know that I will be coming up and I can make sure that I get a number that will be even so that when I go to do this, it will actually work and we won't have any extra holes or any kind of funky problems. So in looking at this, I need to adjust it a little bit because I want 2 spots, get everything just how we want it, and we're going to put 2 holes here. Now this second one may not want to go through just because I have all the charms and such, but I could clearly see where we wanted it to go. So I can just reinforce that and then continue on with my stitching, starting at the new spot that I have created down here underneath my sentiment. Now that I have reached the end here, I'm just going to pull this through, and then on the back side I can tie a little knot together so that those 2 are tied off, and then trim off the excess. Now if you'd like to cover this up, just tape this down and then put a piece of pattern paper or cardstock. The only thing left to do here is just to kind of take a look at it and see if there are any extra or last minute embellishments. Now that the stitching is done, sometimes there might be a spot that you feel like would would benefit from maybe an additional embellishment, and you can place those down onto your card and it's ready to give away. I won't pick that up since some things are still wet. So here is again the original example, the finished card. I just love all of the texture and elements that come together in an elegant but yet a little bit playful, a little bit fun card here for Thanksgiving.